How's it going? How fun is it to open up the day with the new branded deck profile? I just love this deck all over again. I've been playing a lot of Snake Eyes, a lot of Fire King, but I kind of rebuilt the deck to see how I can fit it more into how the format is shaping up to be. And this is the build. And I, of course, want to share this with you guys always. The members on my YouTube and the subscribers on Twitch get this early on our Discord server on the members only channel. So if you want to become one of those, get this every single week, regardless if I post videos, then you can do that and go ahead and do that. But otherwise, this is going to be the video for you. So we're going to do a few things here in this video today. One, we're going to look over the deck list. And today I'm including side as well, because I want to do two things. One is discuss the strategy behind the cards that I put into the deck. And more importantly, the cards that I didn't put into the deck, because a lot of people will often ask me, why aren't you playing this? Why aren't you playing that? I'm going to explain everything to you so you know. And then we're going to look over the side and also do side patterns, which is something that I don't normally do in my videos. So let's dive in to the main deck. The standard stuff I'm going to go through relatively quickly. 3 Albaz, 3 Aluber. And this is becoming standard. I'm really happy to see that. I think I was, I'm not going to toot my own horn, but I think this was a regional about a month and a half ago where I was building the deck with friends. And I was like, is there a reason why I don't want to draw this card every single time? This is a foolish for every card in the deck, and it draws you a card. It can dump important stuff out of your hand. It can grab your Branded Fusion. This is a 3-of, is a relatively new innovation, and I think you might have seen it here first. I really like this card at 3. There's no reason why you want to not draw this card every single game. I think it's extremely important. So I think it's doing well. We're playing 1 Quem and 2 Cartesia, and then we're playing 1 Tragedy, 1 Mercurier, and 1 Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. I'm not gonna apologize. This card, and there's a lot of talk about this card or Sanctifier getting banned. I personally think this should be the one. Let me know in the comments below if you want me to do a video about the other Albion lock targets, which are inferior in my opinion. But this is still so good, and we build the deck around like pulling this off. Even though it's like a little bit dirty, you can still play without it. If you don't feel comfortable going in that line, that's okay. Then lastly, 1 Lubellion, 1 Serenir. Good cards. This will usually be sided out, maybe this as well. You don't always need them, definitely not going second. So we're going to be discussing that a bit later. Those are the monsters. That is it. We're playing 3 Brand Fusion. This card's at 3, this card is also at 3, and this card is also at 3. They are the main engine pieces to your deck. There's no much to discuss there. 1 in red. I've been seeing a lot of 2s recently. We're playing 44 cards in the main. There's no reason to play a second one. 1 Lost, 1 High Spirits, and 1 in white. So the reason why I'm playing these 2 is just more targets for both Quem and Aluber. Usually when you have Aluber and Branded Fusion in hand already, sometimes searching for Lost, which is what you would usually assume you need to do, it's not always the right call because it might not advance your game state. So let's say you are in that situation where you already have Branded Fusion and Aluber, but you need to think to yourself, okay, so what happens if I get ashed? Do I have a way to extend? And then answer the question, do any of these give me a way to extend? Usually, these cards have a much higher chance to let you extend than this because this card doesn't do anything on its own. This is why we play 1 and 1. Good target to dump off of Quem and Albion if you just need an extra card in hand during the end phase. I absolutely love these. And 1 Foolish Burial, and we finally have the QCR called by. I just got it. It's important to have this as a branded player. So these are the engine cards-ish of the deck. And now the non-engine is basically all board breakers. So we're playing 3 Thrust, 1 Talents, 3 Droplet, and then 3 Super Poly. This is not aligned nicely on the screen. So let me explain. I'll add these 2 into the mix because we're playing 1 Retribution, 1 Duplication for the Thrust. So let me explain why this is the approach that we're taking here. There's basically 10 non-engine in this deck. Branded is a deck with, as the years went on, it has a bigger and bigger engine. So you need to play more engine cards. And you have less room for non-engine. This is why you would usually see a branded list with over 40. The reason why you're playing these is that in a hand trap format, usually one hand trap is not enough. And if you only have about 10 slots for hand traps, you would usually, especially in a 44 or 45 card deck, you would not see a combination of two, ever. This is why Snake Eyes and Fire King, they play up to 16, 17 maybe, non-engine in hand traps, so they have a better chance of seeing a combination of two. Since one hand trap is not enough, you don't even want to see one to lose to talents and do something that is not impactful. You just need good cards to break a board. Now, these obviously break a board really well. These and Duplication let you extend past Ash, and Super Poly is a card that I was iffy on for a while, but I actually kind of fell in love with it in a going first application. Actually, when you have this, usually going second, you don't necessarily have anything to Super Poly, and we're going to talk about the targets. If you're playing against Fire, for example, Apollousa, IP, and then Flamberge. If you're not playing Earth Golem or Ignister, we're going to talk about that, then you don't really have a target. And Super Poly on the far cards going second doesn't feel great because of the fact that Flamberge floats, right? So going first, setting this against Fire, and Super Poly on when they exactly have Poplar and Snake Eyes Ash, usually, because they usually don't go for the OG, they go for the field spell, usually that will be a bit better. So it is good. It's very good against other decks as well. And this is the entire 44 card deck. Let's go over the extra deck really quickly. Fairly standard stuff. 2 MJ, 2 Albion, Lubellion, Sanctifier, Titaniclad, Rindbrum. Basically mandatory. Albion is not if you're not playing Puppet. 1 Quiritus. I decided not to play Proskinian and Masquerade. I'll talk about that in a second. 1 Stapelia, still solid. 1 Chimera, still extremely solid. 1 Furious, because it makes it a lot easier with things like Branded in White. And now that you have 3 Albion the Shrouded Dragon, it makes it so much more easier to make, and this card is just extremely good. And then Super Poly targets. This is 15. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 15. Styrian the Dragon Crown. I still reckon that this card is really, really good. And since you have more than 1 Cartesia in your deck, you can still make it fairly easily. I decided to go with this because it is still a card that people aren't playing for some reason, and I think it proved itself when I was testing. It puts such a huge pressure on the board, especially in later states of the game when you get to grind. This card will prove itself. So this is the extra. Very nice. Now let's talk about the side, which I don't usually talk about. We got 3 thrust targets. 1, 2, 3. There's a ton. There's Duster, there's Lightning Storm, there's Evenly Matched, there's just so many. But I decided to go with these 3. Now, Dark Ruler is still a very, very good card, in my opinion, especially in this format too. Negating the Flamberge, the Apo, the whatever, just clears the board. And usually you might have to interact with something in the grave or hand, but at least you can, you know, for example, most of the time, normal 7 Albaz make a Mirror Jade instantly while taking out a body. It is very valuable. DDG going first alongside specifically Fusion Duplication. This will usually prove itself really well for the most of the meta decks, right? If it's voiceless, sometimes branded too, and also, for example, Snake Eyes and Fire King, of course. This is a lore card, right? This is a really, really good discard and send from the hand for all of the effects that send. Lubellion, opening, whatever, right? There's a ton in this deck. And it will have really strong effects, right? This can prevent you from dying if you just call World Seed Dragon Zelantis while it's on the field. But in the graveyard, it can just, you know, negate any monsters, regardless if it's a, special summoning that monster, just a monster effect. Could be against Floowandereeze as well. Could be against Puppet too. So this is my choice for the thrust targets in the deck. I think Black Goat Laughs is underrated, and it should see more experimentation, in my opinion, more than it is today. Now, consider this side deck is not a YCS level side deck. It's a side deck for tournaments I am participating in, and Droll is for those rogue matchups. It's for Flaunderies. It's not good against Fire King specifically most of the time, right? But it could be good against a lot of other decks. It's just important to have, but this is definitely not 100%. Now, there's two reasons why I decided to play Bell. One reason is that I want to be defensive when I go for the Puppet Lock, right? Called by, Bestials, Diddy Crow, Foolish Return, whatever, right? Bell. Very, very good. And it's also a very good hand trap against certain matchups, right? Labyrinth, also fire decks, Voiceless Voice, whatever, right? You want this card a lot of the time. So I figured this was a good call for like one singular hand trap. And then obviously you must play 3 Cosmics. This deck is actually one of the better decks into things like Summon Limit, but it's definitely not as good against things like Anti-Spell, of course. And then 3 Bestials, because this is the fashion again, and this is also why I'm playing Bell, to counter that. People have started going back on Bestials, for example. So let's talk about the things that didn't make the list. One is that I still kind of like this card and want to consider playing this. If you don't know what it does, read. It's an Omni Negate that is searchable in this deck. Searchable by a ton of cards, not only Thrust, but just like the engine cards, because this is a branded spell, or branded trap rather. I'm thinking about it. Maybe it could replace the Goat, because this is like super searchable, and this will protect you from like the board breakers that can usually seal the deal against you, or just like this is Silvera basically. This is just an Omni Negate. It's really good. Now, the things that didn't make the extra deck as follows: Dragoon, Masquerade, Earth Golem, Magnum, and Proskinian. Let's talk about these and why they didn't make the extra. Dragoon, I'm seeing like some people starting to go back up on it. I don't like it because the normal lines that you do, like besides Puppet to the side, but like the normal lines that you would do are just like better than Dragoon because they provide you with long-term value. Things like Mirror Jade provide you with a monster in the grave that can summon an Albaz, blah, 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 you know, search in the end phase. It's more value than an Omni Negate, but this card is good, right? It could prevent you from dying to the OTK sometimes, right? Masquerade puts pressure, wins in time. This deck doesn't really need a time win con for, in my opinion, because it just wins games fast and also loses them fast. Earth Golem is interesting. The obvious application here is like Super Poly on an Apo and a Masquerena, which is a common fireboard. But I was actually thinking that it has an effect too. If it's fusion summoned, you take no damage for the rest of the turn. Okay, this is important. Now, why is this important? Because you can actually super poly if you get there, right? And you usually do because there's no back row removal up until that point. If you know they're going for an OTK, you can actually super poly Zelantis and one of the Cybers Link 4, the Salamangreat Pyro Phoenix or whatever it's called. Cybers and a Link. You can do that with the Zelantis, you can do that with the Princess, and just summon this, and also not take any damage, right? And you can do that throughout the combo anyway. So, like, our deck cannot access Assembled Nightingale to protect us, but this could be a cool tech. The reason I didn't play it is just like, it's too specific for that matchup, but it is good. Magnum, I think it's being played in branded where you play Patchwork, which I don't play in this deck because I felt like it was just too bricky and I wanted like fewer better cards. So Magnum should see play if you're playing Patchwork. And then Proskinian, I was like a big fan of this earlier, but then I realized that it's like not extremely good in like any scenario because this could also protect you from the OTK, right? But the fact that it doesn't have protection means that they can Flamberge put this in the spell and trap zone before they get to the Promethean Princess OTK. Then you can't really interact with the graveyard. This is obviously a bad card going first because it doesn't do anything. So I decided to cut it. These are the cards I cut. Now let's talk about side patterns, okay? And specifically against fire, what I would do. So let's think about, we are going into game 1, right? We won the die roll and we won game 1. We are now going second against fire. Let's see what we can do. Now, these can get you access to board breakers. This is good. These are good. This is fine. Super Poly is questionable. We need to think about like the end board. Duplication goes out for sure. Like this card doesn't make it into my deck if I'm going second. Let's see what else we can get rid of. Usually you can also get rid of the high spirits. This could be a board breaker, so you don't want to side this out. Lost is fine, opening, red, all of these are okay. You don't need to like skimp on those. I would leave in the Serenir and take out the Lugbellion here, because Serenir could provide value against like an IP Masquerena or something. I think 3 Albaz can remain. I would sometimes take out 1 Eluber, right? Puppet, definitely. It's not, like you don't have to. Some people keep it going second because it could still be good. I personally don't like, and I want to see like what are the maximum cards that we can take out. This is actually now with like no Droll in the format. This is also good to like maybe side out 1 and have another 2 to just like reach your board breakers, right? Mercury, Tragedy, Cartesias, and Quem are fine. So this is the way I would do it. Now let's first of all decide on like, do we actually want to side out the Super Poly? I think like realistically, if I go second against fire, I would usually maybe take out like 1. Because it's not going to be, especially if you're not playing the correct targets in the extra deck, it's not going to provide value, but you can still use your own monsters with your opponent's monsters if you're in a pinch. So like maybe in this scenario, maybe keep in 1, but let's see, what do we even want to add into the deck? So we have a bunch of things here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? So it's a lot of cards if we decide to go in that route. This is not super good in the matchup, right? We should have another Droll here. I think Droll is not good specifically against fire, right? So we don't have to. Bell is solid. Cosmic is definitely solid. Bestials, we have 1. I don't think we need more. I think like a competent player will know how to play around it, but maybe you can add just like 1 Magnemite because it could come up. Linkaribo, Masquerena, it could definitely come up. And then going second, you definitely also want this. And this is 8, right? This is 8. I think this is a very good side pattern going second. So we took out a bunch of cards and we added like more Graveyard Interruption. This hits the... You can hit the Flamberge if they don't chain block and they don't do the lines correctly. Very, very strong. And then you have, of course, back row removal because you're going to meet anti-spell, summon limit, stuff like that. 1 Magnemite, 1 Ruler. I really like this. Now, let's say we actually lost game 2 and now we're going to go first, right? So usually what I would do here is these will go out for sure. This is not something I would usually put in going first because I don't really feel like it's needed. Everything else is kind of fine. Like this might go because it's like more of a board breaker, but it does allow you to extend some time. But I think when you're siding, it's really important to like, okay, before I take out the cards, what do I want to put in, right? So we're going first, reminding you that. I might actually, if I want to go for Puppet, I would still keep in the bells. You can do like maybe 2 Cosmics here, and then depending on the matchup, like I would go with either one of these. Let's say we're going with DDG. So that's 6 cards we want in the deck, right? We want these cards, right? So probably, personally, what I would do is like 1 Super Poly goes out, and then we can do like 1 more card that is like a bit better going second. It could be like High Spirits because it's a bit win more. It doesn't really provide value on its own, right? And that's going to be like 6 cards. In addition to that, we can also cut, I'm thinking like out loud, right? Because this is not a normal scenario. Yeah, I think this is definitely fine. Like you do want the Lugbellion, and then you take out these going first, sorry. And then you put these in. Like these could be really nice and valuable. And then the bells can protect your Puppet Lock, right? So this is going to be it. This was really fun. I enjoy like talking a little bit deeper about this deck. I also enjoy when you guys tell me in the comments that you learned something new. So as always, I do appreciate you joining me and watching this video. 20 minutes, you know, not too shabby. I'm not going to keep you longer. Comments below, thoughts on the deck, thoughts on the line, thoughts on the side, your side deck patterns and suggestions. We want to hear them, of course. If you like Branded Despia, join our Discord community. It's probably one of the bigger ones out there. Thank you so much for watching. Like, subscribe. Don't forget. See you in the next one. Peace.